Hello everyone and welcome to the next episode of the Crawley Town Supporters Alliance Simply Reds podcast. My name is Reuben and I'm joined by Louie. You alright, Louie?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Reuben. How you doing?
Yes, I'm not doing too badly, thank you. I mean, it's been a fortnight since we last recorded one of these. The 2 matches have taken place and we haven't lost, so that's always a bonus and a very rare occasion at the moment. But I think things seem to start to be stabilising a little bit now. Or at least it feels like that, and we're not going into every match expecting to lose. And probably on paper, Gillingham drawing against Gillingham on, I was going to say Tuesday night. It wasn't a Tuesday night; it was a Saturday evening, wasn't it? I think a lot of people would have taken that. And I know a couple of people were a bit disappointed by the Accrington result, but we'll delve straight into that. So kind of the Gillingham game, 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports, as we were joking in the last episode. I mean, goodness knows how many people actually ended up watching that game. But Bajrami and Shamanga scoring our 2 goals, with Dak and Mackenzie scoring for Gillingham.
Yeah, and I mean, anyone who did tune in on that Saturday evening, they were treated to a pretty decent game. It was, plenty of chances. I thought we had, particularly in the first half, the better of the chances. We could have been a couple of goals up by the time they scored, and it was it's just one where their keepers had a good game. Kind of the story of our season in that first half, where we've, so often this season we spoke about we've been the better team. We played some really good football. We've created chances and we've not taken them. So yeah, when they scored at the end of the first half, it was a bit like, oh, here we go again. But we responded really well in the second half. Came out, played, carried on playing the way that we can. We sort of played, carried on from the first half and didn't really let it affect us. And very quickly got back into the game with another set piece goal. We seem to be picking up a few set piece goals at the moment. So yeah, another good header from Bajrami. I think that's his 3rd of the season.
I think so.
So he's making quite a useful habit of kind of picking up these goals from set pieces. He doesn't look like the biggest aerial threat, but he seems to be just getting the right places and have a knack for scoring them. And yeah, from there you think we can kick on and get 3 points because we were playing well, creating chances. And we spoke when we looked at this game a couple of weeks ago about how, one of my things was if we get the ball down and take the game to them, I think they could be quite vulnerable, and I think we just have to go there with no fear. And we absolutely did that. And I think there's nothing in that game that made me think we should have sort of been worried by them. Obviously, the frustrating thing is, again, I think refereeing decisions have let us down. They've got a penalty which I don't think anyone realistically thinks that's a penalty. It's hit Charlie Barker in the stomach or in the hip. It looks like frustrating. It's one of those where I don't. No one likes VAR, but it is one of those where you wish VAR was there because within 30 seconds they would have, they would have brought that back and said no, not a penalty. You'd like to think. So. Yeah, but again, just a frustrating one because we just got back into the game, we just got level, the momentum was with us, and then they get a pretty fortuitous penalty. But again, we respond really well, keep creating chances, we keep going, we stick to the task, we stick to the way we play best, and get a very deserved point. Good poacher's finish from Shamanga, comes on, makes an impact, he's just in the right place at the right time. Gets really. Josh Flint's making a bit of a thing of driving forward and creating goals and chances at the moment. Really good drive forward from him. Nice bit of combination play. Nice bit of link up, and then good pass across the box. And Shamanga, he's exactly, that's where strikers get their goals, in between, sort of in that area between the goalposts. That's what he's brought in for, and it's good to see him kind of finding some sort of form off the bench. We'll come on to the Accrington game in a bit. Where he's had a similar impact. But yeah, and even then...
Spoiler alert.
Sorry, yeah, spoilers, in case you didn't know what happened in the Accrington game. Yeah, and it's just frustrating because we still could have gone on and won the game. Louis Flower set up for a one-on-one was it injury time or the 88th minute, something like that. Like pretty much probably would have been the winner. And keeper makes a good save off the top of my head. So yeah, a really good game, a really good performance. One that you go away to a place like Gillingham, where even though they've not been that impressive recently, I don't think they are going to stay I don't think they're a top 17 by any means. And I think by the time the new year rolls around, once you've got through the next sort of the busy Christmas period and everything, I think you'll see them kind of level out at mid-table in the same way you might see us possibly sneak up towards mid-table. I think it's still a decent result. It's never an easy place to go. It's somewhere that I think we've only won once there in the league.
That was like Christmas time, wasn't it?
That would have been Boxing Day a couple of seasons ago. So we always seem to struggle there. So it's good to get that fixture out of the way, especially on a cold sort of Saturday evening in the middle of November. Not the easiest. Kind of all the sort of cliches you can throw at it. It's on TV. We always seem to turn up on those kind of big occasions on TV. I think the playoff final and the
on TV with Steve Evans.
Yeah, of course, because there is literally no one else who they could wheel out to talk about us, is there? It's good. It was a decent point, but a better performance than point, and I think one that we kind of look back and we think, especially, we probably had the better of the chances. Gillingham might well feel that they could have nicked it. They certainly had chances, but we definitely had the better chances. We definitely the draw was the least we deserved, and a lot of good individual performances as well. Josh Flint, like I said, setting up that goal. I thought Bajrami was tidy. He's always someone who, I really like him as a player. He's tidy, makes the right decisions. He's solid on and off the ball. Obviously, Shamanga coming on and making an impact, and just a lot of sort of good individual performances and a lot to be. If we play like that most weeks, you'd like to think we'll start climbing the table pretty quickly. Obviously, on an unfortunate note, Max Anderson looks like he's got a fractured leg, which.
Oh really? Wow!
Yes, I think that's the latest update from Scott. So that could be, that could be months. That could be minimum 2-3 months. We probably won't see him before February or March. I'm no physio, but I've played enough Football Manager, and I've seen enough sort of leg fractures and stuff over the years watching football to know that you don't recover from those that quickly. Obviously, it depends how bad it is, but not ideal. But
not at all.
A really good performance to kind of follow on from the Bristol Rovers result.
Yeah, I mean, the Gillingham fans are very complimentary of us. So we're one of the better sides to have gone to the stadium. And not many teams go to Priestfields to actually play football and to actually try and attack them. So very complimentary. And even people that watched it were saying that it's good. A good advert for League Two football, which is again what you want. But I mean, I'm looking at the starting 11 and the subs bench, and actually our subs bench, was pretty poor. We had Harvey Davies, and I don't remember last time we actually had a goalkeeper on our subs bench. We had Joy McKenna, Jack Rolls, who came on from Max Anderson, Shamanga, Fate Coty, and Jude Robertson. So, I mean, it didn't really give you many choices there for Scott. We only ended up making 2 substitutions. So, whether we're just really unfortunate injuries, people not being fit, whether Scott felt that was the best opportunity for them. But, I mean it was a shame, though, for Gillingham that we didn't get to see Glenn Morris. And he didn't seem to have made that. Well, we say it was a shame.
Yeah, knowing how good a keeper he is, especially even at this age, on his day, it's probably a good thing that that we were, we weren't facing him. But would have been nice to see him. It would have been, because I don't think we've seen much of him since he left us. I don't remember too many occasions where he's lined up against us, but. Yeah, you make a good point about sort of the lack of depth that we had in that game. I mean, Scott's been very happy to not have a goalkeeper on the bench before, so that kind of says a lot that we didn't have options. Fate. Like you said, Coty, not necessarily someone who's been in very many squads this season. Not that that's necessarily a kind of a knock on his ability, but he's obviously still very young. And there's obviously players ahead of him in the pecking order. I mean, I think it wasn't helped by Dion Pereira and Kahim Dixon being on international duty. They obviously would have played a big part. You imagine Pereira would have started. Ben Radcliffe seems to have picked up an injury because he's played very well and then drops off the face of the earth. Not even in the squads at the moment, which is obviously unfortunate for him.
Still no Conroy either.
It was, but that's another thing to consider. Given the sort of the unavailability issues that we face in terms of kind of injuries to kind of important players as well. If you think about McCurdy being out, Anderson coming off injured, it's a very good point in the circumstances. And I think the frustrating thing is it should have probably been 3 with the chances we had, particularly at the end. But it's the point off the back of 2 good home wins is never, it's kind of good to carry on that momentum, especially with the performance. But yeah, frustrated that it should have been 3 points.
Yeah, indeed. But let's hope we were able to carry that momentum into the next game, where we ended up drawing 1-1 with Accrington Stanley. I think on paper we were semi-hopeful that we'd be able to get a result from them. It's at our place. We come off a good result against Gillingham in principle. But I know kind of post-match Scott wasn't happy and was quite frustrated with the way that we did turn up, considering the way we did play against Gillingham. I mean, it kind of started off badly, 28th minute, Accrington scoring to take the lead. Then in the 65th minute, Shimanga scoring a tap-in with Bajrami again playing a part from was it a set piece?
Yeah, it was another set piece goal. Bajrami, it sort of falls to Bajrami, fires it in the vague direction of the goal. And Shimanga reacts really well, actually, really sort of neat and controls it and turns in one motion almost, and then sticks it home. And yeah, nice on his weaker foot as well. Good reactions, good finish. And it's, I still don't think I would start Shimanga because I think his impact this season has probably been off the bench. If you look at his 3 league goals, they've all been off the bench. I think he's someone who, if the last 25, 30 minutes, if you're chasing a goal, he's quite useful against tired legs. He can pick up, gets into some good positions, but starting games, he's perhaps not strong enough, not quick enough, he's not going to be someone who defenders would, they wouldn't mind going up against him from the start of games. But yeah, it was a kind of a very weird performance, kind of a weird afternoon. It felt very flat. I don't think, I know the weather's the same for both teams, but I don't think the weather helps. It felt, very flat in the crowd. It felt flat on the pitch. We knocked it about nicely. We had a lot of the ball, but we didn't really do a lot with it. And the goal, I mean, the Accrington goal kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. It didn't really feel. I mean, I'd say it felt like against a run of play, but there wasn't really a run of play. It was 2 teams not really doing a lot with the ball when they had it. It felt like, and we reacted. We reacted fairly well to the goal. I thought, we carried on trying to play our football. We had 67% of the ball. Just looking at the stats here. But yeah, it's almost the complete opposite of the Gillingham game. Not that many chances. Can't remember too many times where we really threatened. And even at 1-1, I don't really remember many chances after that. To be honest, we struggled to break them down. We struggled to really put much pressure on them. They didn't really look like scoring against us. Once it got to 1-1, it felt like a tired performance. It felt like the sort of performance that you get maybe sort of on New Year's Day when you've played Boxing Day and then you've played like the 28th or the 29th of December, and then you play Boxing Day and then you play again on like the 4th or at the weekend. It felt like one of those games where everyone's just knackered. You've got players playing through injuries. But it shouldn't have been the case. We'd had a good week's rest from the Gillingham game. We wouldn't have travelled far. Gillingham, obviously, And I know maybe it's just a sort of an accumulation of sort of injuries and suspensions and players racking up a lot of minutes when perhaps we might have rotated them. Yeah, it felt like there wasn't much energy in performance. We lacked a bit of creativity when we did have the ball, and I think that's where Dion Pereira, obviously he's come back from international duty with an injury apparently, according to Scott, so that's not ideal. And he's been one of our sort of brightest sparks creatively, creating the most chances for us. And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, his numbers in the league are up there. I think they're in top 5 or top 4 for chances created. So we missed him. We sort of struggled to really kind of threaten when we had the ball. We had plenty of the ball. We had plenty of time in the game to create chances once we went 1-0 down. But it felt like a game that if you'd have played another half hour, it probably would have ended 1-0. It really didn't feel like a game that was going anywhere once it got to the 85th minute or so. I don't think both teams settled for a point. I don't think we ever settled for a point at home, really, especially when we scored in, the 65th minute, and we still had, from there on about half an hour to score, which is plenty of time. But it never really felt like we had the urgency to go and get 3 points. It more so. Normally I kind of look at the tactical things and I try and think why couldn't we score, why couldn't we break them down, but it just genuinely this is more like a vibes based analysis. It just didn't feel like a game that either team were ever going to win. You could play that 100 times and it'd be 0-0. Sorry, 1-0.
It's probably one of those games like end of the season, nothing to play for, let's just get the season over and done with.
Yeah, it really does feel like that.
It's not going to be a game that I think people remember for the rest of their lives. And actually, it's probably at this point it's worth just giving a shout out, if they listen, to the people from Norway who came over to watch Crawley. Crawley supporters don't quite know their story, why Crawley, but I mean, fair play to them for making the effort to come down and watching Crawley. Just a shame we couldn't get the 3 points for them.
They've managed to make it to Crawley the one time of the year it'll be colder than Norway, so that's also
at least didn't get called off.
Yeah, well, that was one thing that, I mean, kind of having watched the game, you almost wish it was, because it felt like it was the most 0-0 1-1 draw I've ever watched. It just really had that feeling to it. It's just quite a forgettable game, really. I'm struggling to remember much of it, to be honest. And it's just one of those where I'm just kind of glad we've got out of it with a point, because it's one of those where if we'd lost 1-0, you look back at the end of the season and go, oh yeah, that happened. Just it's a very difficult game to analyse. We looked tired. We looked kind of like we lacked ideas, but yeah, we should have. And I think the frustration is it's probably a winnable game. You look at Accrington at home; it's a winnable game. They're in okay form, but not in incredible form. They're only just above us in the table. We've been pretty good at home for the most part this season. Our performances have been largely pretty good as well, and just not a bit under. I think the feeling was at the end of the game just very underwhelming, both performance and the result. But it's another point on the board. It's another point towards safety. And if I'm not mistaken, I think results largely went our way as well on Saturday, which is a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, we're currently 19th now on 17 points, 2 points ahead of 23rd, bottom two, 23rd, 24th going down. Accrington, one above us on 18. So, yeah, I mean, it's not incredible. But then if you look at our last 5 matches, we're currently 4th in the league table. And so I think it's worth pointing that out. That actually, recently we have been putting in better performances.
Yeah, and even if you look at the underlying numbers for the last sort of 10 games, we're right up there. I think we're 3rd in the table for XG. And again, I know it's not everyone's favourite stat, but over a large sort of sample size, it does tell you kind of what your performances have looked like. And I think you can probably say over the last 10 to 15 games, our performances have, for the most part, been pretty good. And no one feels like we should be where we are, really. And everyone can see that we're struggling to take the chances that we do create in a lot of our games. Gillingham, let's count as other games this season. We don't need to go over those again. But so yeah, kind of the form table is starting to bear out a little bit of what we've been seeing on the pitch. Unbeaten in 4, probably should have been 3 wins out of those 4 games. And there's a couple of tough away games coming up in the league. Our next 2 games are quite tough away games, and then we're going to a pretty busy December New Year period, which I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, we'll talk about that in future weeks, and we're no point looking ahead to, for example, Barnet away just yet. But I think it's a really crucial bit of the season. If we can, by New Year's Day, sort of find ourselves closer to mid-table, I think we'll have had a really good run of form. That means we have to have had a really good run of form. And people are always fond of saying in the promotion season we were 15th in February. Now, that makes it sound like we were a lot further from the playoffs than we were. I think we were only 5 points off the playoffs. I think it was a really congested sort of League Two that season. But, a good run of form takes you into the new year, and with a good transfer window, perhaps getting a striker who can take our chances. Because God knows we need one. Who knows what could happen in the second half of the season. I'm not for one moment thinking we're going to have...
Go in the league.
Well, no, I'm not for one moment thinking that we're even going to get near the playoffs. But even if you look at the top half of the table, you've got teams like Notts County who were 8th and then 2nd, and now they're back down in 5th. It feels like similar to League Two last season when no one wanted to win the league and no one wanted to get promoted. It feels like that again a little bit, where there's no one really running away with it. The teams at the top of the league have a really good run of form, and then they drop off. So a good run of 5-10 games where we pick up, 2 points a game, or even 2.3 points a game, whatever it might be. Who knows where we might end up? We could be in the top half of the table by February. That's absolutely feasible. And then you have to be a little bit optimistic and keep looking upwards. But we'll cross that bridge if we get to it. Right now, I think the key thing is not losing this little bit of momentum that we've got, because we've got 2 really tough away games coming up, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and that's a nice segue into our next away game. But before that, Louis, how would you like to get your hands on the Will Swan shirt?
Are there any other shirts that I can get my hands on by any chance?
So the club are currently selling some of their old match-worn shirts. Some are signed, some are not signed. So had you have got in quick, you could have got a Tanami home shirt for £20, match-worn.
Excellent.
As well as a Rory Feely home shirt and John Jules away shirt.
Are you telling me that the Rory Feely home shirt's already been snapped up?
It has.
That is incredible. I mean, no disrespect to Rory Feely, but that is remarkable.
But I mean, Radcliffe for £100, Jay Williams, Wallacott, Adiemo. I found a bit of a bargain. That was a where was it? Bradley Ibrahim third shirt.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
For £40. Match worn. And even a Liam Fraser, both third kit and away kit for £40. Or Panucci Kamara for £50.
Oh, that's a good one, actually. I can't believe all these ones are still available, and then you got the Rory Feely home shirt. And
Jeremy Kelly for £60. Oh, possibilities are endless.
So how can you get your hands on one, Reuben? Tell me.
You can do it via the Crawley Town shop, where they're currently selling them. So have a look at the Crawley Town shop website or on Crawley Town social media, and you'll be able to get your opportunity to own a bit of Crawley Town history.
Could be a great Christmas present for the Crawley Town fan life. For the Crawley Town fan in your life. Payday this week for a lot of people, or next week.
Yeah.
So absolutely, if you start to think about your Christmas shopping, you're kind of stuck what to get your dad. You don't want to get him a mug or beer or whatever. He's a Crawley Town fan. £40 for a Bradley Ibrahim shirt. Not a bad present, actually.
No. I was going to make a joke about some of the other shirts if you don't like somebody, but I won't. So, looking ahead then, playing Salford City, a team that we've never really done well against when we've gone to theirs. I think we've played 5, drawn 4, lost 1. Yeah,
it's a weird record at their place. It's just 1 defeat in the 5 games we've played there, which actually, when you look at it that way, not bad. 4 draws, including under Kevin Betsy. I believe, which was a game where I think did we draw? Was it 1-1? It was either 1-1 or 2-2, and it's actually one of the few, from what I remember, one of the few good performances under Kevin Betsy where we were a little bit unlucky not to win that game. I think it was like the third or fourth game of the season that year. And yeah, but like you say, not a place where we've ever won, but there's no better time to kind of break that record, and records and stats they're there to be broken in many ways. There's always a first time for everything. So, and there's a few reasons to be confident going into the game. Obviously, we're 4 unbeaten, putting in largely some pretty good performances. The goals have started to come for us. Obviously, scored 4 against a pretty hapless Bristol Rovers, but scoring 2 at Gillingham, scoring 2 at home to Fleetwood, who are, I think, a pretty decent team. Scoring against Accrington, that doesn't, won't read too much into that, but the goals have started to come for us. And I think one thing that's always true of a Carl Robinson team is that they are quite streaky. They will go on long runs of good form for 10-15 games where they will look like the best team in the league, and then suddenly they will just absolutely implode and go on runs where they can't buy a win for 8-10 games. That's been true when he was at Oxford, at MK Dons, and it's been true of him at Salford. And if you look at the form table, Salford have lost their last 2. They possibly are just dropping into, this could be a good time to play them, is what I'm getting at. They're possibly just dropping into one of those sort of weird streaks of form where they can't buy a win. Now, it needs to be said that their defeat at MK Dons a couple of weeks ago was pretty unlucky. They were much better team in that game. They've gone to MK Dons, who weren't impressive, and MK Dons have just taken their chances. But basically, Salford did a Crawley, is what I'm trying to say. And then obviously went to Bromley. Bromley's a difficult place to go this season, and it was last season as well. But they've gone to Bromley. They've, again, dominated the game, had by far, the better chances, more shots, all of the ball pretty much. And they've been kind of hit with 2 sucker punches in the first half. So, a strange, they've had a couple of unlucky defeats, but again, it's kind of, you look at that and you think they're off the back of 2 defeats. Carl Robinson team's quite streaky. It could be a good time to play them. But we can expect a pretty good game. They're very similar to us, like to get the ball down, like to play, like to attack. So I think it's 2 fairly similar styles that are lining up against each other. So we're going to have to have our work cut out to try and get at the sort of usual share of possession that we used to and that we've become accustomed to this season. But if we do that, I think you kind of have to earn the right to play. We've got it's been in these sort of games where we've struggled actually this season. I feel like games against teams where they want to play as well. We haven't always sort of won those duels and picks up on second balls. I bang on about it all the time, but you need to do that before you actually get the ball down and start playing. We haven't always done that against teams that want to keep the ball. And I think there's another thing against these sort of teams. We don't particularly press them very well. And I feel like that probably contributes to us not having as much of the ball as we used to and struggling a bit. So I think in terms of sort of the tactical matchup and what to expect, I think we could struggle to kind of impose ourselves. And I mean, Salford will go into this as big favourites, I imagine. They're much higher up in the league than us. They're generally playing pretty well. But it could be a pretty good time to play them, and hopefully we've got players coming back, with McCurdy coming back. Ali Amo's managing to stay fit, touchwood. Hopefully Pereira's back. But we've obviously got a lot of injuries at the moment. If 1 or 2 of those are coming back, then that could be a huge boost for us. But it's one of those where I'd actually take a point. I would take a point, even though
you'd always take a point away from home.
Yeah,
games in place like Salford's.
Yeah, it's one of those where a point in isolation wouldn't be a bad result. But I think we're at a point in the season where we need to start picking up 3 points more regularly to kind of pull away from the relegation zone. Like you said, we're only 2 points clear, and we should be much further away than that. And what I'd hate is for us to go and put another great performance and come away with nothing or come away with a point because we haven't been able to take our chances. And the same things that have been happening this season in front of goal keep happening. But I think, the first thing is the performance. And if we can put in a good performance, I'd be pleasantly surprised because I think it's a game where we might struggle. Hopefully not. I always try and be optimistic, and maybe, again, we've had a full week to prepare, so that's more time for players to come back from injury and more time for Scott to prepare the team. But I think it's a game where we could struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it's also been good to see McCurdy coming back, and hopefully he can put in a good performance against us.
He was lively against Accrington, and actually one of the few chances that I do remember from the Accrington game was where Josh Flint again plays Josh Flint is somehow now our most creative player. He plays a beautiful pass, splits the defence. McCurdy runs through, probably makes the right decision, trying to lob the keeper as the keeper's coming out, but the keeper makes a good save, sort of tips it wide. That was probably the best chance we had in the first half, and the best chance we had up until the goal. I feel like, but again, I think so. It's another chance where I like McCurdy as a player. I think he's our biggest threat, but at the same time, his finishing is probably just not where it should be at the moment. He's missed a lot of chances this season already, not including penalty that he missed against Walsall, I think it was. But he's one of those where I feel like he should be on 8-9 goals already this season, McCurdy, and I think he's on 4. So he's getting into good positions, and he's always a threat. He never stops running. So you kind of have to think that the goals will come for him at some point, but he's only scored it in 2 games this season. He's got 2 braces this season, and makes you think in the other games what's happening with his finishing, because he's had plenty of chances, and he should be on 8 or 9 goals, it feels like. So kind of worried about that. Kind of worried about where, as I think everyone has been all season, where those goals are going to come from. But if we keep creating chances, then at some point McCurdy's got to put them in. And I feel like we're more than capable of going to Salford and putting in a good performance, and there's no reason why we can't. But just from a match-up, just from kind of knowing what to expect from them, I wouldn't be surprised if we struggle.
Yeah. What's your score prediction then?
I'll go 2-1 Salford.
Against Crawley.
I hate to sort of bet against my own team. It's not something I make a habit of. But I just think they'll be quite stung by losing 2 games that they should have won, and possibly for the reasons that I've spoken about already, and also the fact that we've never won there. Could be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 Crawley.
Oh, I love the optimism.
Because as you said, records are there to be broken, so we might as well beat them. And I'm going to say that Jack Rolls and McCurdy to score.
Rolls and McCurdy. Is Rolls coming off the bench?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Scoring outside.
It's a late win. We're assuming 2 late goals.
Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
100%.
2 late goals, bit of a hit. Sort of hit and run. A smash and grab, rather, not hit and run. Smash and grab.
Hit and run.
I don't know why. Anyway.
So, moving away from football, and before we just touched around the club, I was watching, who is it? Charlton v Southampton at the weekend. Watching them online. And who do I see bossing the midfield for Southampton? Cameron Bragg.
A certain Cameron Bragg.
I was not expecting that at all.
No, and in a pretty dominant performance, he had what I've heard, a pretty good game. Yeah. Which is, I think, a little bit surprising for anyone who saw him last season. He never looked like a bad player, but he sort of looks just a little bit... I think at the time, League One was possibly... He probably should have gone to a League Two club rather than League One. He clearly has good technical ability and a good ability to read the game, but felt a little bit off the pace at times. So to see him bossing it in the Championship is a bit of a shock.
It was only his second game in the Championship, and this season, Well, at all actually. He's only played 2 previous games for the FA Cup. I believe it was his first start. On FootMob, he scored 7.7 rating, which is pretty impressive. And yeah, considering he's 20 years of age, the future might look bright for him. We can understand why he was now at Southampton.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't be the first player who's had who's struggled out on loan in his first season playing regular men's football, and then has learnt from that and comes back and turns into a much better player pretty quickly after. I mean, there's plenty of players who the same thing has happened to them. They struggled out on loan and then they've gone and absolutely bossed it. You look at someone like Liam Delap. He's now Chelsea's number 9, but I remember he had a loan spell at Stoke from Man City and just did absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And it was only a loan spell at Hull where he looks like he might be able to. But anyway, that's just one example. There's plenty of players who struggle out on loan and then it makes them into a better player, and that's part of the reason they go out on loan. So, yeah, pleased for him because he always seemed like he had a good attitude and he always seemed like someone who had the ability but perhaps just needed the right environment. And I think also for a young lad going into a team struggling at the bottom end of League One, it's quite difficult compared to a team that started to pick up results in the Championship like Southampton have. So yeah, pleased for him, and I like to think that we can take some of the credit for his development.
Yeah, indeed. So moving away then from Cameron Bragg and looking back to Crawley Town, on the 14th of November, I think we were all I was at least pleasantly surprised to see the fact that Erdem Konya is now back at Crawley Town. Feels like we've done a full circle. He was here a few seasons ago, then he left, and now he's back kind of in the director of football role. And I mean, he'd been spotted in the director's box, I think, a couple of times, but nobody was really sure why he was there. I know he's spoken quite passionately about his love of Crawley and that he would like to return at some point. And yeah, here he is. And I know Scott Lindsay has been quite positive about him so far, which is good, which is what you want when Erdem and Scott are probably going to be working the most closely together going forward. What are your thoughts, Louis?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think it came out of the blue for most of us. I think we were all expecting some sort of appointment to be made eventually, but to see that it's Erdem, it's a pleasant surprise. And I think it's a pretty shrewd move. He knows the club, obviously knows the area. He obviously will want the best for the club. That goes without saying. So that kind of you know that he's going to be very conscientious in his work. He's not just he's not just there because it's a job. He's there because he really wants to be there, which I think is a key difference to perhaps what you might sometimes see in that role. And on top of that, I think his experience of picking up players who are who are perhaps been overlooked. We signed a lot of really interesting players. When he was here under the sort of in the pre-Wagney days, we signed a lot of very guys like Reece Grego Cox, for example, or even Max Watters, obviously the most famous example. A few more of those wouldn't go. He's obviously got an eye for talent. It's a very long-winded way of saying that. So yeah, really, really interesting move. I think a pretty positive move. And he'll obviously be able to work well. He'll obviously know a lot of the staff that are at the club, sort of behind the scenes. He seems to have a pretty good relationship with Scott already, from what Scott said. And I think the most positive thing is that there's going to be a voice perhaps challenging the recruitment, because I think the recruitment was quite heavily led by Scott in the summer. I think that's fair to say. If you look at some of the players we brought in, a lot of players who Scott knew, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want, managers bring players with them all the time. But if you look at where we've had success recently with bringing players in, they've not necessarily been players that Scott would have handpicked or Scott particularly wanted. It's fair to say. So perhaps having someone bringing alternative ideas and challenging ideas is a really good thing. And I think it's quite a modern way of doing things anyway, so it's probably for the best. So yeah, really, quite pleased with that. I think it's just in time as well. If you look at when we're only a month out really from Christmas and the January transfer window. So hopefully Erdem's had a busy first couple of weeks, sort of talking to agents and looking at who we can bring in. Because kind of as we touched on a lot, we probably need a bit more firepower, perhaps a little bit more depth at centre back as well. Actually, on that note, it's going to be, we'll obviously talk about it closer to the time, but it'll be really interesting to see what sort of players we do bring in now.
It could be quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, interesting to see what sort of budget the club are working with.
And also, it sounds like from Scott's interview, it sounds like some players will also be leaving.
As well. I wouldn't
be
surprised. There's some players who barely played. I mean, Ben Radcliffe, he's only started one league game. Probably would have started a couple more were it not for injury in recent weeks. But wouldn't be surprised to see him go out on loan. There's probably I think there's certain players. Gavin Holohan hasn't featured recently, although I don't know if he's been injured.
I think he's been injured.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, at this point, it's easier to say he hasn't been injured. I think it's just
But I mean, overall, people have been fairly happy with Erdem coming back. I haven't really seen many negative comments. Although I will just read you out this one tweet that I've seen about him. It goes ha 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 ha. You get the picture. That was from Crawley Town fan Preston Johnson.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. I mean,
he didn't seem happy. Well,
no, he sounds very happy though. I don't know. Normally, when someone's laughing, they're pretty happy. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think there's much that we can say in a sort of public forum that's worth kind of saying, really. And I think a lot of other people's thoughts were probably shared, certainly by myself, in terms of, what a better response could have been from the former owner of the club, but we'll leave it at that. But it's one thing that kind of does remind me. Talking about Erdem and kind of how strongly he feels about the club. I do remember in the very early days, or sort of that first season under Wagme, where there was a lot of, obviously, we were looking like we were going to get relegated. No one was happy. Things had gone completely wrong. And I do remember those sort of Twitter spaces that we used to have back in the day, and there was Crawley Town Twitter spaces, and Erdem was on there, sort of passionately defending the work that he'd done, and the work that Selim had done as owner before selling to Wagme. And so I think it is genuinely sort of a labour of love for Erdem. So that's why I think what's the most encouraging thing. It's not just convenient for him to be here. It's genuinely something that he wants to do. And it probably is convenient. He's probably still local to the area, I'd assume. But yeah, it's in terms of the names we probably could realistically attract and who would be a good fit, I think it's actually really shrewd.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's going to be an exciting future to see what happens, particularly in the next transfer window. And hopefully he can stamp his mark quite quickly. I mean, we know already that there's going to be a meeting in the next few weeks looking at transfers going into the future, because I think they said that they've got to do it early and build those connections with these players. So let's see what that brings. So in other news, we also heard the sad news that Jim Green, the former vice president of Crawley, has passed away. I mean, I'm sure the Crawley fans from the past times knew him well, and there was a minute's applause, wasn't it, in like the 36th minute or something at the
36th or 37th. We should have fact checked that, but obviously very sad news. Someone who gave a lot of his time and energy to the club, and I think it was a really well observed minute's applause as well, which is really nice to see. I think, as you've hinted at, perhaps some younger fans wouldn't have necessarily been familiar with Jim or the work that he did, but even then, it was still very widely well observed from across the stadium, which was a really nice tribute to someone who, like I said, gave a lot of time and energy to the club.
Yeah, no, definitely. then moving on then, we've already mentioned briefly the Bromley game, but they've announced the ticket allocation for the Bromley game. Only 550 tickets will be available. It's one of those ones where I can't quite tell if we're going to sell out or whether we're not going to sell out.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, build
Tuesday
up to
night.
Christmas. Tickets are £25, which is on the steeper end for League Two. Build up to Christmas, but it is only 550. It is only an hour and a half away. You know, it's one of our shorter away days or away evenings this season. Yeah, I mean, it's very weird as a Crawley fan. Obviously, we don't have the biggest sort of away following, and outside of sort of think about obvious games like Old Trafford or the playoff final or certain other games, like maybe Wimbledon or Sutton. It's very weird to see us Crawley fans panicking about getting tickets, and we're in a position where for one of the few occasions where it's had to kind of be there's had to be a priority sort of order, which I think is the right way to do it. Otherwise it's a free for all, and it just feels weird to be in this position. We don't normally have to worry about selling out, and even if we do sell out, I'd be very, very impressed, very pleased. I think we can, and it'd be great to see us fill out the away end. But yeah, make sure if you can go. Obviously, Christmas coming up, not everyone's got that sort of spare 60-70 quid you might need for tickets and travel and food and whatnot. But if you can go, make sure you do get your tickets. It'll be a tough game, but a local one, and one where could be a really good evening if we come away with 3 points. So tickets are on sale this week, is it?
Yeah, so the first time they're going to be doing phasing of tickets, which I think it's probably one of the first times I've done it really for a league game. So phase 1 starts on the 25th of November, so today, where season ticket holders who've attended 4+ away games can get them. Then phase 2 is all remaining season ticket holders plus non-season ticket holders can get them. Non-season ticket holders who have been to 4+ away games this season. And then from the 3rd of December, general sale. I mean, fair play to the club for both prioritising season ticket holders and also remembering that some fans, like myself, can't get a season ticket, but
most importantly,
are still able to get to games, and actually for them, away games is what works for them. So well done to the club for doing that. And yeah, I know for most of the away games you were able to buy tickets on the ticketing system, but there'll be some occasions where you've had to get them on the door, or you've got a friend to buy them for you, and so you can give Crawley Town Ticket Office a call with some proof that you've been there.
Yeah, the Gillingham game had to buy from Gillingham, for example.
Yeah. So whether you're showing a selfie there with you in the pub, or your Google Maps tracking, or whatever, bank statements,
Strava history, or whatever.
You can just contact the club and they'll be able to organise you getting tickets for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, fair play to the club. They approached me in the CTSA for our advice before it came out, and which I thought was good of them to do that. And they took our advice on board, which again I think is great. And some of our advice on board, and looking forward to the game already. So, Louie, thanks very much for joining me as always this evening, and come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Reds.